Hello chaps and chapesses, how are you? I do hope you're well. Welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. Now then, if you are new to the guitar and you're wondering what is the best guitar to buy for you, then you really can't afford to miss this video. Right, so let's assume you want to play the guitar, specifically the electric guitar. You probably have quite a few questions, and the aim of this video, it's not really to say, oh, you need to buy this make and model of guitar as opposed to that one, although there will be a few recommendations at the end of the video. What we really want to get down to here is for you to decide which type of guitar. There are basically a number of different styles of guitar that are made, and we're going to be investigating the pros and cons of those. Probably the first question you may be asking yourself is, do I need to begin on an acoustic guitar? A lot of people think that you do. A lot of people think that everybody who learns to play the guitar has to begin on an acoustic guitar and then you graduate to an electric guitar when you are, quotes, good enough. No, not really. If you want to play electric guitar, get yourself an electric guitar, save yourself the expense of buying an acoustic guitar and then going out later on and buying yourself the electric guitar that you wanted in the first place. So which is the best type of electric guitar to buy? Well, that largely depends upon the styles of music you want to be able to play. Broadly speaking, the electric guitar can be broken down into two design types. There's the Fender design and the Gibson design. Now already I can hear more experienced guitarists shouting at me through their monitors that I'm oversimplifying things, but that's what we're going to go with for the moment. Broadly speaking, two schools of design when it comes to electric guitar, Fender and Gibson. And we're going to start off by looking at which is the best type out of those two for your needs as a fledgling guitarist. Okay, let's have a look at the different construction methods employed by the various guitar manufacturers. First of all, the Fender construction method, which usually consists of a body made from a wood called alder. It's sometimes ash, or it may even be another type of wood called basswood, but at a push I'd say alder is the most often used wood for Fender type bodies. The neck will usually be made of maple and will be attached to the body by means of 4 wood screws. This is often referred to as the bolt-on method, even though they're not really bolts, they're just screws. And below that you'll see the Gibson construction method, where you usually have a mahogany body and a mahogany neck, which are joined together by means of a glued joint. These different construction methods result in vastly different sounding guitars. For example, most Fender type guitars tend to have a brighter, more transparent kind of sound, whereas Gibson style construction usually leads to a darker, warmer and slightly more powerful sound. Here are a few examples of guitars which use the Fender construction method. First of all, we have the Stratocaster. A great all-round guitar, as is evidenced by the fact that it's been used by players as diverse as Jimi Hendrix and Hank Marvin. Next up we have the Telecaster, the Model T Ford of the electric guitar world really. This is a guitar which tends to be associated with country, blues and rootsy kind of rock, although in the right hands it'll handle pretty much any style you care to throw at it. Next we have the Fat Strat, sometimes referred to as the HSS Strat. This is a more powerful sounding guitar down to the fact that it has what we call a humbucker pickup installed. We'll come to what the different types of pickups are very shortly, but briefly, a humbucking pickup is a more powerful, louder pickup, making this a guitar more suited to rock styles. An evolution of the Fat or HSS Strat is what we call the Super Strat. Various companies make these. Fender themselves have dabbled in this market in the past, but I guess the two companies which are most associated with this particular type of guitar are Ibanez and Jackson or Charvel. This is basically a Strat type guitar using Fender construction methods, but it has more powerful pickups and a more advanced tremolo system, allowing all the kinds of dive bombs and weird effects that you would hear typically on 80s rock. Finally, we have the Jazzmaster, a guitar which is currently quite a favourite amongst indie bands and alt rock for its distinctive jangly tone. So when you're in the guitar shop or browsing online, choosing your first guitar, just ask yourself which, if any, of those guitars would be the one which suits your musical aspirations. If you're not sure that any of those guitars would be a good fit for you, perhaps it's time to take a look at some guitars made using the Gibson production method. And I guess the most famous one of these has to be the Gibson Les Paul. Traditionally a very dark, powerful, warm sounding guitar, often associated with classic rock. If you want a good example of what a Gibson Les Paul typically sounds like, just go and listen to any old Guns N' Roses record. Next up we have the Gibson SG. This guitar started out as an updated redesign of the Les Paul, which happened in 1960. But the man himself, Les Paul, didn't like the look of it and asked that his name be removed from it. So Gibson simply dubbed it the Solid Guitar, hence SG. This is a very close relative of the Les Paul and has a very, very similar sound. I guess the main differences are the fact that if you aspire to play music which involves playing right up at the highest notes at the top end of the neck, you'll find these notes much easier to reach on an SG, and an SG is considerably cheaper to buy than a Les Paul, so that might be a factor that affects your choice. Another company who make guitars very heavily influenced by Gibson is a firm called Paul Reed Smith. Paul Reed Smith began building guitars in the mid-1980s, and one of his first high-profile customers was legendary guitarist Carlos Santana. Essentially an updated version of the Gibson design, these guitars feature more versatile pickup switching and a nod towards Fender production methods by the inclusion on most models of a tremolo arm. If you're looking for a guitar which kind of sits halfway between a Gibson and a Fender type guitar, then this might be the one for you. Another iconic Gibson guitar is the ES335, a guitar which is partially hollow, which gives it a slightly brighter sound than a Les Paul. It's in the same kind of ballpark in terms of sound as a Les Paul or an SG, but as I say, that semi-hollow construction method gives it a slightly more transparent edge to the sound. A big fan of this semi-solid construction method is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, so if you like his guitar sound, then you might want to check out a semi-solid guitar yourself. Finally, we come to a slight departure from Gibson's normal method of construction of gluing the neck into the body. We have the Firebird. Now, the interesting thing about this guitar is that the neck and the body are all made from one piece of wood. This is called through neck construction. A Firebird will typically have a brighter sound than most other Gibson guitars due to the fact that it has smaller, what are called mini humbucking pickups. If you want a good example of what a Firebird sounds like, check out any recordings by veteran bluesman Johnny Winter. Okay, let's have a look now at the different types of pickups that are fitted to guitars. Fender type guitars, with the exception of maybe the Fat Strat and the Super Strat, tend to have only single coil pickups. A single coil pickup is simply a magnet. All guitar pickups are based around a magnet, which as you can see has a north and a south pole, with a coil of wire wound around that magnet. And basically what happens is that when the metal string disturbs the magnetic field, it causes a current to flow in the wire, which then goes off to the amplifier to be turned into a sound. One drawback of single coil pickups is that they can be quite susceptible to electrical interference. So another type of pickup was invented in the 1950s called the humbucker pickup. And basically what this does is it takes two single coil pickups and wires them out of phase Basically, the positive terminal on one coil is wired to the negative terminal on the other coil and vice versa. What this ensures is that any interference or hum which is picked up by one coil is cancelled out by the interference or hum picked up by the other coil. It's a pickup that gets rid of the hum, hence the fact it's called a humbucker. Humbucking pickups tend to have a darker, warmer, louder sound than single coil pickups, and they also sound less transparent and therefore less suited to certain styles of music. However, there is a way around this, because what we can do is we can disconnect one of the coils on a humbucking pickup by a technique known as coil tapping, or sometimes referred to as coil splitting. Guitars which have this feature will usually have a switch somewhere which allows you to switch one of the coils in or out, enabling you to go from humbucker to single coil mode. So if you're looking for a versatile guitar which has the best of both worlds, the Fender type single coil sound and the Gibson humbucker type sound, then this is something you may want to consider. Okay, coming up next we have some examples of what all of these different construction methods and pickup types actually sound like in various playing situations. Okay, so hopefully that gives you some idea of what different sounds are created by guitars that have different construction methods and different pickup types. If you're looking for a versatile guitar that can cover pretty much any situation, then you're probably best going for either a Fender type design, which has an additional humbucker pickup in there to give you that kind of fatter rock sound, or a Gibson type design with coil tapped pickups that can kind of take you closer towards the more transparent Fender sound. Whilst I'm here, I'll also kind of sound a note of caution about the shape of the guitar. It's important that as a beginner you have a guitar which is comfortable to play. Don't be too ready to buy a guitar simply on the grounds of its looks, if it looks cool, if it's the same guitar as played by one of your idols. For instance, a guitar like this one, the Flying V type guitar, looks really cool in the hands of a rock star on stage, but you try playing that sitting down while you're kind of learning your first chords. It's an absolute nightmare. It simply will not stay on your knee as you're learning to play. Likewise, other guitars, perhaps like this one, a BC Rich, will tend to be quite uncomfortable to play with sharp pointy bits sticking into your ribs all over the place. So the reason why many guitars tend to follow quite sort of conservative with a small c shapes is because these are the shapes that have been proven to be ergonomic and comfortable. And really speaking, learning to play the guitar is difficult enough without having to put up with being jabbed in the ribs by a sharp pointy horn on a guitar, or having a guitar which is continually slipping off your knee. So just bear that in mind. But perhaps the biggest consideration to take into account when you're buying a guitar, electric or acoustic, is something called the action. You hear guitarists talking about this all the time, so what does it mean? Well, the action is the distance between the strings and the frets that you press the strings down onto. So if I hold this guitar like this, I'm pressing a string down like that, and it's that distance that I'm having to push the string down to make contact with the neck. That is the action. A high action makes the guitar difficult to play. A low action makes the guitar easy to play. So it's an easy choice, really. However, if the action is too low, it can mean that the strings buzz and rattle and sound pretty unpleasant. So you want the lowest action possible without it causing what we call fret buzz. If your guitar does have fret buzz, then it's not the end of the world, because this can be rectified. Simply take it into your local music shop and they will be happy to sort that out for you, obviously for a small fee, but it doesn't cost a lot to put right, is what I'm saying. Another source of confusion for the novice guitarist is the difference between an electro-acoustic guitar and a semi-acoustic guitar. These two terms are often used quite interchangeably, which isn't strictly correct because they're very different beasts. A semi-acoustic guitar, like this one or this one, is basically an electric guitar. It's designed to be plugged in and played amplified. It simply won't be loud enough to be heard as a standalone acoustic guitar. It has a hollow or partially hollow body, which is there to kind of add another dimension to the amplified electric sound. These styles of guitars are most commonly used for blues, for jazz, and rockabilly guitars are often semi-acoustic guitars. They are not, and I'll say this again, designed to be played as standalone acoustic guitars. We have also the electro-acoustic guitar, like this one, and as you can see, there is a lead coming out of it going to the amplified. So obviously these guitars are designed to be plugged in and amplified, and the thing there is that you're not going to get an electric guitar sound when you amplify this. What you're going to get is a louder version of the acoustic guitar sound, which makes these guitars suitable for playing big concert venues where the unamplified sound of an acoustic guitar simply wouldn't be loud enough. So as a beginner guitarist, you really have to ask yourself, do I really need to pay the extra to have all of the electronics and gubbins installed in a guitar purely for making it suitable for playing in the local town hall? You're basically not getting a guitar that can be used as both an electric guitar and an acoustic guitar. It doesn't sound like an electric guitar when it's plugged in. Anyway, on to a few recommendations for which guitar or guitars to go out and spend your money on. And before we get into this, I just want to make it absolutely clear that I am not endorsed by or affiliated with or in receipt of any money from any guitar manufacturers or guitar retailers. These are all honest opinions that you're getting based upon my own personal experience. So just thought I'd get that out of the way. Anyway, here's a few guitars that you may want to consider. Okay, let's assume you want a versatile guitar, something that can handle pretty much any style you care to play. Let's also assume that you want a guitar you're not going to grow out of too quickly and end up having to spend more money on a better guitar further down the road. As I said earlier in the video, a Stratocaster is a great all-round guitar, and the only real problem with a Fender Stratocaster is that they can be a bit pricey. Fender do make entry-level guitars under the brand name Squier, but to get a good one of those you're still going to have to spend probably about £300 to £400. A much cheaper alternative is this copy made by a company called Harley Benton. Harley Benton guitars are only available from a German online retailer called Thomann, so you don't have the option of trying the guitar before you buy it. However, I've had several Harley Benton guitars and I've been impressed with all of them. Thommann's customer service and after-sales service is usually pretty good as well, and they ship them really fast. Essentially, this is a professional quality instrument for less than £200, and to be honest, you will struggle to find a better deal than that. Another guitar, which also takes its inspiration from the Fender Stratocaster, is the Yamaha Pacifica 112. Unlike the Harley Benton, this features a humbucking pickup, which gives it that extra little bit of versatility. So if listening to those sound clips that I did earlier, you think, ooh yes, I like the sound of a humbucker, then this may be the guitar for you. Again, this guitar costs less than £200, and unlike the Harley Benton, again, you can walk into your local guitar shop and try one out. You also get Yamaha's well-deserved reputation for quality control and reliability. The final guitar I want to recommend now is something a little bit more inspired by the Gibson Les Paul. This is another Harley Benton, the SC450 Plus. I actually own one of these guitars, and I used to own the guitar that it is a direct copy of, the Gibson Les Paul. A Gibson Les Paul will cost you over £1,000, and even Gibson's entry-level brand Epiphone for a guitar like this would set you back about £400. Once again, this Harley Benton is under £200, and it compares very, very well to the £1,000 plus Gibson Les Paul. It also has the coil taps that I spoke about earlier on the pickups, so you can switch between single coil Fender type sounds and the thicker, fatter, warmer Gibson type sounds. If you're looking to emulate the sounds of someone like Slash or Gary Moore, then this may very well be a good choice for you. Now, let's move on to what kind of amplifier you're going to need. Okay, let's talk amplifiers. The most important thing to consider when you're looking at an amplifier is that of effects, the sound effects that you will need, and I do stress that you will need these. The reason is that most of the time when you hear an electric guitar, if not all of the time, when you hear an electric guitar on record, it will have certain subtle effects on there. And when they're missing, it just sounds a little bit flat and a little bit kind of bland, to be honest. And to illustrate this, what we're going to do now is I'm going to play the same thing twice, the first time without any effects, and then the second time with a 2 or 3 subtle little effects kind of dialed in, and you'll hear the difference that it makes. Right, hopefully you could hear the difference there. The guitar without the effects on it did very definitely, I think, sound quite dull and flat and uninteresting. And with the effects it just sounded like how you hear an electric guitar sounding when you hear an electric guitar. So what's the best amplifier to go for then? Well, certainly one with built-in effects. And there are various brands that you could check out. Line 6 or PV are quite popular brands. But if you want to keep the expenditure nice and low, then this amplifier is the one that I would recommend. You'd really have to search far and wide to find a better amplifier for a novice guitarist than this, the Blackstar Fly 3. One of my students has one and it is a beautiful little thing. It is little, it's about the size of a tub of ice cream, so that's easily transportable, but it does have a very big sound. It runs off 6 AA batteries or the optional mains adapter. As you can see, it doesn't have a lot of controls on it, but it still manages to produce a really rather nice sound. Let's have a look at what those controls actually do. First of all, we have the gain control, which basically allows you to dial in different sounds. Anything from a sparkly, clean sound like this, to something altogether more rocky sounding like this. This little switch next to the gain control allows you to switch between those sounds, and next to it you'll find the volume control, which sets the overall volume of the amplifier. Next to that we have the EQ or ISF control, which stands for Infinite Shape Facility. Basically it's a tone control, but quite a clever one. Instead of going from a bassy sound at one end of the control to a trebly sound at the other end of the control, what it does is it sort of steps through various different quite well-known amplifier sounds like Marshall or Fender or Mesa Boogie or any of the other iconic amplifiers that you've heard millions of times on various records. The next knob controls how much delay or echo effect there is on the sound. You don't get multiple effects on this amplifier, you just get delay echo, which is frankly one of the most useful to have, and it really does give the sound a massive lift and makes it sound more professional. And finally we have a couple of sockets that allow you to plug in your MP3 player or phone, so you can use this little amplifier as a portable speaker device. You can also plug your guitar in at the same time and play along with your favourite music, and if you want to avoid disturbing anybody whilst you're practicing, you can plug in a set of headphones and only you can hear what you're playing. Unfortunately, I don't have one of these marvellous little amplifiers here to demonstrate for you because it belongs to a student of mine and he's taken it home. But I have sourced a really good review and demonstration of this on YouTube, which I will put a link to in the description box below. And there you have it, a little bit of food for thought for you if you're looking to buy your first ever electric guitar. I do hope you found this useful. Something else you may find useful when you're beginning to play the guitar are some lessons, which is something else I can help you with. If you live on Teesside in the northeast of England, you can get in contact with me via the details at the end of this video to arrange some tailored one-to-one guitar tuition. And even if you don't live on Teesside, I can still help because I now offer lessons by Skype. So once again, get in touch via the details at the end of the video and we can sort something out. Whilst I'm here, I'll also just give a little plug for my brand new album called The Whiskey Made Me Do It. It's basically bluesy, guitar-based rock. I describe it as catchy tunes with flashy guitar, so if that sounds like your cup of tea, then check it out. You will love it, I promise you. Okay folks, that's it for now. I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.